Hi, are you stuck at home? Are you wondering how you're going to keep up your happy chemicals while you're stuck at home? I'm Loretta Breuning, founder of the Mammal Institute. I'm going to give you some really simple strategies to keep feeling good while you're stuck at home, and then a longer explanation of how your brain works and how you can manage your happy chemicals and avoid your threat chemicals. A lot more information is at my website, innermammalinstitute.org, including plenty of books, podcasts, and more videos, every possible resource you could want. Now, let's start with a simple strategy and a simple story. If you've read any of my books, you know that my simple story always starts with the gazelle who smells a predator. Now, gazelles cannot avoid living in a world of predators all the time, but they don't have panic attacks. They don't have anxiety syndromes. So how do they do it? Well, partly it's because they have a small brain. Our big human brain is designed to anticipate potential threats, and we are really good at anticipating potential threats. But gazelle has another trick that we can learn from. When a gazelle smells a predator, what does it focus on? Not on the predator, but on its next step. And that's how we can feel good, by focusing on our next step rather than on the potential predator. Now, it's a little hard to focus on your next step in these times for a couple of reasons, for so many reasons. So one of them is because in our daily lives, ordinarily, they're so structured that your next step is often defined for you. So you don't have to think about it. You don't need that much self-direction. When all of your usual structures fall away, then it takes a lot of focus to say, okay, what's my next step? And if you don't focus on that, what are you going to focus on? The predator. And what if there is no predator? You find one because you have such a big brain. So that's how our brain works. And now let's look at it in a little more detail. So when you're feeling good, your brain is releasing one of the happy chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, or endorphin. When you're feeling bad, your brain is releasing the threat chemical, cortisol. And cortisol has a job to do. In the state of nature, it helps us recognize threats so that we can avoid them. And that's what our big brain is designed to do, is look for potential future threats and avoid them. So how does our brain define a threat? Well, there's a few ways. The main one is from past experience. So anything that threatened you before, you run from that today. And that makes sense in the state of nature because it helps you. In nature, the threats are pretty consistent. So whatever felt bad to you in your past wired you to fear that. And that turns on your cortisol because the neural pathway is there. Electricity flows there so easily. And what do? You release cortisol and it feels like the threat is happening right now. So how does this work? Well, nobody had necessarily this particular experience in their past. So whatever other bad experiences you have is like a template that you lay over it and you find that element. So for example, one person maybe had health challenges in the past. Another person maybe had fear of being isolated and home alone in their past. Another person maybe had sharing in other people's pain and not having permission to be self-directed because they're always focused on the pain of others. So whatever your template is, you are projecting that onto your experience today. And when you give yourself the time and space to look for those old patterns and to know that everyone has them, don't see it as a crutch or a crisis or a syndrome. Everybody has these wirings, and to say, I accept my old wiring, but I understand that it's not happening right now, even though cortisol makes it feel that way. So that's the first step that helps you Shift your focus from alarm bells and predators to positive reward steps so that you can feel good and get more happy chemicals no matter what situation you're in. So, what's the next thing that triggers our unhappy chemicals in addition to those old pathways is the new inputs. So, when a gazelle smells a predator, the smell is real. So you could say, well, it's real. There really is evidence of threat. So what's the first thing a gazelle does when it smells a predator? Before it runs, it gathers information. It needs to know where is the predator, so it runs in the right direction and finds the best escape path. So what is our big brain doing? It's looking for more information about potential threats. So many people in your world are looking for information, offering information, and you can spend your whole day gathering information about potential threats. And what happens when you do that? That stimulates more cortisol. And cortisol lasts in your body for about an hour. And in that hour, it tells you, look for threats, look for threats. And then your big brain is so good at finding them that you stimulate more cortisol. You end up in a cortisol spiral, and you don't have the energy and the focus to step toward rewards, which is what's going to make you happy. Now, the third thing of what triggers our unhappy chemicals is the herd. So a gazelle runs when the herd runs. So a gazelle is always watching others. And even when a gazelle is eating, being in a herd allows you to let down your guard and eat because you run when the others run. So many people now are engaging in the kind of herd behavior where you're watching what others do. And when others feel threatened, then you feel threatened. And it's hard to resist this because those people who feel threatened, they're insisting on your attention and they're telling you that you should run. So even though you're trying to stay calm, these other people are trying to panic you because that's their mammal brain wanting to be joined and together because of that safe herd feeling, which is a happy chemical that we'll get into in a moment. So, how can we feel good when we get into this cortisol loop? And if we go back to our gazelle model, so a gazelle looks around for an escape path, and then it focuses on its next step, and the next, and the next, and it keeps its focus there. And pretty soon it has escaped the threat and is back to eating grass and meeting its needs and feeling good. So that's your goal, is to focus on steps toward rewards so that you will stimulate your happy chemicals and feel good. Now you can say, well, how can I possibly focus on rewards now? And that's what we're going to talk about. So you have power over your brain. You are constantly choosing where to focus your attention. Your brain is designed to focus on threats and rewards, and you are deciding, am I only going to focus on threats or am I going to focus on rewards? And you have so many reasons not to focus on rewards and only focus on threats. And you may tell yourself, oh, it's because I'm such a good person. How can I focus on rewards when so many other people are threatened? And these are the kind of things we're trained to tell ourselves. But if you want to feel good, if you want to have a good life, you have power over your brain. You are deciding what to do with each moment of your limited life. And this is the way to do it if you choose, and you can choose that. So, happy chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphin. If you've read my books, you already know this, but I'm going to apply this to to very current situations, stuck at home situations. If you haven't read my books, I'll give you simple introduction, and everything is free on my website, and my books are very inexpensive. So Dopamine is the great feeling that you're about to get a reward. And what I didn't explain as much in my books, dopamine is all about prediction. So our brain is always trying to predict, how am I going to get a reward? A gazelle is trying to predict which path will lead to escape. So dopamine is the great feeling of excitement when you're about to get something that will meet your needs. And before you invest your energy, your brain is predicting this is going to work. Now, in a world where everything is suddenly uncertain, how do you know what's going to lead to reward? How do you know where to invest your energy? How can you predict anything? So that's the problem many people are having. Now, all of your usual ways of getting dopamine may not be available. So you may think, I can't predict anything. Like, normally it's like, what am I going to do this weekend? What am I going to do next month? What am I going to do 2 months from now? And then you think, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And you can get in that thought loop, and then you're not going to get any dopamine. So here's a simple solution. How can you focus on things that you do have control over? And a simple solution right now would be, think of something you've always wanted to do. And 6 months or a year from now, you will be so happy that you got it done. And you will look back to today and say, wow, that was the great time in my life that I got done that thing I've always wanted to do, something that you have control over. Now, I'll list a few examples. So one would be to teach yourself a certain skill, maybe even a skill that you've been afraid of working on because you failed at it in the past. And right now in these stressful times, you may think, well, I can't do that. I'm already stressed. But in fact, once you focus on that, once you take one small step, you will get that dopamine. It will feel great, and you'll take another small step. And the panic world will just fade away because the electricity in your brain will focus on steps toward rewards rather than taking in predator signals. Now, that was just one example of building that new skill. And if that seems hard, try it for 10 minutes. If that seems hard, try it for 5 minutes. Try it for 1 minute. Turn on a timer and only do it for 1 minute. And maybe you have 2 or 3 skills, and I'll do that for 1 minute and that. And maybe you say, okay, I'm going to work on that 1 minute this morning and 1 minute this afternoon. Now, other examples. My favorite one, you have the closet that's a total mess, and every day of your life is encumbered by the mess in this closet. And you're like, oh, I just wish, or your desk is a mess. And I've always wanted time to re-look at and rethink and reorganize. And you can do it. Another example would be cooking. Another example would be to write a heartfelt letter to this person or that person. Another would be to write down the experiences of your life from maybe 20, 30 years ago that you'd love to have written down. So there's so many things. And the favorite example among many of my followers is learning a foreign language. And I've certainly used that a lot in my life. So that's another example. Now, all of these, again, they're things you have control over. They're things that lead to an expectation of reward, not immediate reward, but you have connected them to reward in your own mind. So you don't want to necessarily, you don't have to save the world. You don't have to get the reward of, like, how can I protect my health? How can I improve my immune system and get rid of all the germs in my life? No. Because that's going to be a cortisol loop, because you're never going to succeed. So focus on something that you have control over, and all that paranoia will melt away. Okay, so that's the dopamine story. And by the way, in all of my writing, I always talk about having a long-term goal, a short-term goal, and a medium-term goal, because you can't always control your steps toward rewards. And when you have more than one goal, then you can, if one path is blocked, you can always focus on another. However, in this case, long-term goal, if it's like, if you say, oh, I always want to plan a trip to Tahiti, but trip planning is really maybe not a great thing now, but you can read about Tahiti. You can find research ways to earn money for your dream trip to Tahiti. So you can't actually plan when you'll be able to travel, but there's so many ways that you can find steps toward your goal and have more than one goal. Okay, now let's move on to the next happy chemical. Let's talk about oxytocin, because that's the herd chemical. If you've read any of my work, you know that oxytocin is known as maybe the love hormone or the cuddle chemical. And maybe you're stuck home alone. Maybe you're stuck home with a partner who maybe you're not even getting along with. And maybe you don't have anyone to cuddle with, and of course you can't cuddle all day. So it's important to know that this chemical oxytocin is the herd chemical that gazelles release when they have the safety of social support. And it's so important to know that a gazelle's herd is not this idealized, romanticized thing where a herd is like, oh, we support each other all the time. And some of these documentaries about monkeys, they give you unrealistic expectations that animals are nice to each other all the time and they stick together and they got each other's back. No, 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 that's just not true. So they fight in one moment and then they make up and then they go back to fighting. So when you're stuck at home, this may be happening to you. And oh, I think that'll be another video. And at the end, I'm going to suggest that you send me your questions. And I think that may be the next topic. But for now, how can you stimulate that oxytocin feeling while you're stuck home? So you want that sense of social support. And my favorite strategy is to say that I'm not a herd animal. I have chosen not to be a herd animal because we humans, for most of our history, we were more like herd animals in the sense that we were tribal and we followed the tribe all the time. We never took independent action. We just followed. And most humans today, they don't want to just follow. They want their freedom. But then your inner mammal says, yikes, I'm all alone, I'm isolated. So it's the self-acceptance to know that we have created this in our own heads. It's a pendulum. The minute you're isolated, then your oxytocin falls and you say, yikes, my survival is threatened, I'm going to be eaten by a predator. But then when you're with the herd, you're like, oh, enough already. I don't want to follow the herd all the time. I want my own thing. So if you were with a herd right now, they might be on your nerves. But now when you're alone and you're isolated, now you wish you had a herd. So when you understand that your brain works this way, that you know that you've created this yourself, then you know that your survival is not really threatened. And you can say, you know what, someday I'm going to be back in my old routine and I'm going to be with people every minute. And I'm going to wish for a moment of alone time and wish I had used it well when I had it. So think about, what can I do with my alone time? And also, because we like to stimulate oxytocin, what can I do to stimulate it while I'm alone? But again, don't just focus on being with the herd, but that's just one of your elements. So what can you do to build social bonds while you're alone? Well, you can do something nice for someone. You can, but don't focus on rescuing people. Don't focus on cheering up a person that is in a total panic, like they're drowning and they want to pull you under, and you will never turn them around. So here's another way to think about it. I have decided to be positive. I'm going to um, uh, interact with other people in a positive way. I'm going to um, give a little positivity to this person and a little positivity to that person. I may not get positivity back, but I don't have to meet them. I don't have to join them in their negativity. I don't have to apologize for my positivity. I'm just going to feel good about what I did and to know that they have mirror neurons and they might mirror my positivity or not. So you don't have to fix other people. You have to take responsibility for your own brain and respect their ability to take responsibility for their brain or not. So another way I think about it with my big human brain is to say, I can have a virtual herd. Now, what does a virtual herd mean? It does not mean being on social media all the time. The reason for that is what your inner mammal wants is social support. Now, are those people on social media real support? Maybe for a split second, yes, the next second, no. So your inner mammal is saying, yikes, they're not real support. So where can I get real support? Now, many people take that to the other extreme, and nobody's good enough because nobody's giving you real support. So it's important to be realistic about support. And I write so much about this, and I write a lot about how it works in animals, so we understand that there's conflict and competition in the animal world, so we could be more accepting of the conflict and competition among the people in our lives. Now, again, my virtual herd is that I get support from this person when I need it, and I get support from this person when I need it, and I get support from this person when I need it. So I don't need them every minute. It's only when I need them. So here's a simple example. Let's say I'm trying to learn a foreign language. Let's say I'm planning my trip to Tahiti. Let's say I'm planning my new skill that will give me my new dream career a year from now. And as I start taking my self-directed steps, I'm having a little trouble. And then I think, who can help me with this trouble? And in my life, my first reaction is, I don't know anybody that can help me with this. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my life? I should know people who can fix my computer and teach me about this. And that's my inner child that's saying, I I don't have protectors. I don't have heroic parents who know everything. I don't have strong leaders to smooth away and make everything easy and give me that escape from predators, make it all easy. But once I calm that down, I think, oh yeah, this person might help me with that, and this person might help me with that. And what I do is I just write, I think of 3 people. I write them really short notes, like not dumping my whole life on them, but a really short request. And maybe you then reciprocate and then move on to the next thing. Often I solve the problem myself just by writing the 3 notes because you think it through and you come up with the solution. But the bottom line is those 3 people may or may not work, but the next time you run into a problem, you'll do the same thing. And over time, you'll get notes back from people, you'll build a network, and you'll feel good. You'll feel safe, you'll feel protected, and it will all be from your own skills in building a virtual network rather than having to be a herd animal that does nothing but follow every minute of your life. Okay, now we're going to do, in the limits of time, one more happy chemical, serotonin. Now, if you followed my work at all, you know that I have a different approach to serotonin. Animals are very competitive. We know that a little bit of serotonin is released when an animal finds itself in the one-up position, and it feels good. And no one likes to admit it when they are enjoying the one-up position. No one likes to admit it when they feel bad when they see themselves in the one down position. And yet, this is what we want. This is what makes us feel good. And this is what a mammal wants because they get more reproductive success when they're in the one-up position. And so that's what stimulates your happy chemicals, even though you don't say that. And even though the medical establishment doesn't present it this way. Now, how can you be in the one-up position when you're stuck home alone? The way people are doing it today is by ridiculing those who buy toilet paper. I can't tell you, like everybody in my world is doing this. So, okay, you've done that already. Now, how else can you feel in the one-up position? So, obviously, you can listen to this video and feel pride in your own survival skills. You can feel pride in your own ability to direct your brain toward rewards rather than focusing on threats. Now, when you do that, don't expect other people to applaud you. Don't expect them to say, yeah, you got it going on. You're better than us. We're stupid. You're smart. That's not nice, right? And they're not going to say it. And if you get into that, ouch, you know where that's going to go. So just keep it to yourself and just feel good about your power over your own brain. And you don't have to nanny anybody in particular, but don't get sucked into their cortisol spiral either. But instead, you're focusing on your next step. You're having 3 different rewards. You're having 3 different goals. You're stepping toward them all the time. You can help other people in a reciprocal way, but don't focus on rescuing. Keep it reciprocal, but not short run reciprocal like tit for tat, but realistic reciprocal. And that's all for now, but I would love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your questions. I will do more of these. And so please go to innermammalinstitute.org, innermammalinstitute.org. My book explains all of how to do this. My book, Habits of a Happy Brain, Retrain Your Brain to Boost Your Serotonin, Dopamine, Oxytocin, and Endorphin Levels. Then there's my book, Tame Your Anxiety, Rewiring Your Brain for Happiness. My book, The Science of Positivity, Stop Negative Thought Patterns by Changing Your Brain Chemistry. And there's my video series, YouHavePowerOverYourBrain.com, YouHavePowerOverYourBrain.com, which is free. And again, I'd love to hear from you and enjoy your time stuck at home because that's your only choice other than hating your time stuck at home. Nice to see you. Bye.